I think the first thing that happens when you're building trust with somebody and that connection is understanding. Somebody needs to know that you understand who they are, where they are, what they've been through, but and more importantly, in a lot of situations, is where they're going, where they want to go. Mm-hmm. And they can perceive, I don't know if it's, people call it energy, vibe, whatever it is, I don't know, but there's something about an energy that you get from somebody that you just feel this connection. And I don't really know what it is. I think it's just being a good listener, asking good questions, sharing enough that lets the other person know that I understand you. I know who you are, mm-hmm. or I know.
Hands up, heads down, shake it on, turn around. We're kicking dick, we're gaining ground. We do it right, do the here right now.
So this is going to be another one where I know you well, but I don't know everything about you. So
yeah, and I normally don't talk about my personal life.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, you're somebody that I genuinely feel comfortable. I mean, just riding around town, we're having that really mm-hmm. deep conversation about personal things.
Yeah,
I've always just felt connected to you and just able to talk to you about, there's certain people where you just feel like I can trust this person, I can talk to them and mm-hmm. share things with, and just all people are not equal.
Yep.
And I don't know what it is, just that's the connection that we have, that I just feel like it's easy to talk to you. And you're somebody that I respect, that's been down the road ahead of me, that you know what it looks like. I think you're wise. I think you're discreet. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that you're going to take something I tell you and just kind of spread it around.
Yeah. And
so there's very few people like that we come across in life where we can really have that connection and talk to them, and you really value the feedback that they give you.
So I'm just going to jump in here with that question because I'm curious. What do you think? This is going to be a little bit about me, but only because I'm curious around what it is that in our relationship and our conversations mm-hmm. that work towards gaining your trust. So for you to feel that way about me, but I really wanted it to be a lesson like, how do we all be better at that? How do we gain trust, be an advisor to someone, being that person someone wants to come to? What do you think it is? Let me ask you this question first. When's the first time we talked? Let's try to pinpoint the year that we first talked on the telephone.
It would have been November. It would have been either December or January of 2019. It would have been, probably December of 2019.
So pre-COVID, but like almost COVID.
Almost COVID. And I almost didn't take it. I didn't want to talk to you. Yeah,
you dodged it for a couple of months.
Yeah, because Jack introduced us.
Jack T-E-W.
Yep, Jack. And he had told me for probably 18 months or 2 years, yeah, you got to talk to this guy, Scott Smith. And I was like, yeah, Jack, I don't mm-hmm. know. I never heard of him.
And he was telling me the same thing. He's like, man, there's this really sharp younger dude in Texas, Chris Hamilton. I think you guys would hit it off. Yeah. Now, I had a reason, True Network, we were looking for members. And so I had a reason to try to call you. You had a reason to try to avoid me because you knew. But so we talked at the end of 19, and then you guys joined True.
Probably January of 20. It was very quick.
Yeah. We probably talked 4, 5, 6 weeks, maybe around that same time.
Yeah. I actually told this story last night at a conference. I was at a conference in Florida earlier this week, and I told this story to a group of people at dinner. But it was actually last night, and I had a contract of a competing organization on my desk for probably 90 days or maybe more, and they'd mm-hmm. been following up with me. And my intent was to sign it, but there was just something in my gut that said this isn't the right organization. But I'd been a part of a different bigger organization, and I didn't really like the experience. It wasn't the culture we were looking for. It didn't have the collaboration in it. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, I just had this thought in my gut that was like, man, this may not be the right one for me. Mm-hmm. And then I was driving home from the office. I had a phone conversation with Jack too, and he's like, Jack, he's like, yeah man, you got to talk to my boy Scott, And so I was like, That's my best Jack 2
That's
impression.
pretty good.
And I was like, all right, Jack, I'll have a call with him tomorrow. I'll call him. And then you and I had a phone conversation on the way to an appointment. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I'll just have a 15-minute phone conversation. Probably nothing will come of it. And we talked for probably 45 minutes on the entire ride to my meeting. And I knew as soon as we hung up that phone, I was like, that's the group for us.
Well, that's just super interesting. Now I'm going to go back to the long question that I asked that we never even got to because we went back to the setup, how we got here. There's probably no way to get that 45-minute conversation and recollect exactly what we talked about, but what is it? What builds trust so fast? Because you do it too. You know, give me some insight. What do you think happened?
I think the first thing that happens when you're building trust with somebody and that connection is understanding. Somebody needs to know that you understand who they are, where they are, what they've been through, but and more importantly, in a lot of situations, is where they're going, where they want to go. Mm-hmm. And they can perceive, I don't know if it's, people call it energy, vibe, whatever it is, I don't know, but there's something about an energy that you get from somebody that you just feel this connection. And I don't really know what it is. I think it's just being a good listener, asking good questions, sharing enough that lets the other person know that I understand you. I know who you are, mm-hmm. or I know.
There's some interesting things about that. I hope that, because this is what I think, that I truly don't care what someone is doing. Meaning, if you'd have joined that other group and that was best for you, that's great. And I hope that comes across when I'm talking to people. Like, I know we're doing some pretty cool stuff at True. I've heard great things about you. Like, I want to find out about, like, what gets you excited? What are you concerned about? Like, what's some areas that maybe you're struggling in the agency or maybe personally with work? And then if it works out that what we're doing is your jam, yeah, I want to tell you some more about it. That's the way I feel.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what the younger version of me, by the way, it takes some years to get there.
Yeah. And actually, it's funny. I was talking about this very thing last night at dinner. I think professionals get to a point in their career where they're comfortable where they are, mm-hmm. and they're not in need of getting new clients or growing their business. They don't need to do it. They may want to, but there's an energy that you give off, a seasoned veteran that has a big book of business that doesn't need any more clients, but they still want to get clients, or you still want to grow. But when you walk into a meeting with a prospective client, and I tell myself that every single time I walk into a prospective client's meeting, I don't need this client. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually interviewing that client to figure out, do I even want to work with you? And I know that sounds brash, or egotistical, but I really do want to work. I can be picky at this point in my career who I work with and who I don't. Mm-hmm. And when you're first starting out in your career and you're trying to build a book of business, it's very difficult sometimes to grow, and you just want to pick up clients because you need to grow your book of business, you need to grow your revenue. And in doing that, sometimes you pick up bad clients. Yeah. They don't fit what you're doing culturally. They're really asking for things that are outside of what you're really built to do, and they can drag your business down. And then you reach this point where you don't really have to grow, mm-hmm. but you want to, and that allows you to be a little bit more choosy of who you work with. Because if you find the right people, and this is what I think you've done really well inside of True, is you're bringing in people that really fit the culture, because you don't have to grow True. Yeah. And so if you bring the right people in, it's almost like it's this magnet that continues to grow organically.
There's so many things. So first of all, a funny Jack 2 story, since we talked about him, because Jack was, I hired Jack as first a producer. He was actually running a business with his then ex-wife. When they got divorced, he kind of, for whatever reason, he just left that business, and I handled their benefits. And we were friendly, but not friends. I don't even know if I ever told this story in public. And so Jack and I headed off, and I think he had seen a lot of people successful in our industry in Birmingham and liked me, and was like, yeah, why don't we give this a shot? And he quickly was so smart that he became invaluable. And so he became not just a producer, but then he was managing the consultants. I don't even know what his title was at the end, because he was doing operations, sales, consulting. He was like doing all the real, I would go out and hunt it I would hunt kill it, bring it in, get a client, develop the relationship, and then he would manage that entire block of business we had.
He was like a jack of all trades.
He was like very good, very good. So we somehow, during that period, we convinced this group of about 6,000 people, where our largest client was maybe 300 or 400 or 500, that we could handle their business, a large healthcare business in Birmingham with multiple surgical facilities around the country, way outside of our expertise. But we sold them, we convinced them, and they became our client, and it almost killed us. Our top consultant told us she was going to quit if something didn't happen. Jack was pulling his hair out, and we finally lost the case. It was $500,000 of revenue. It was big time stuff. And then, of course, it forced me to go out and sell 30 new groups the next year and replace it with much more sustainable business. But your story of like when you're younger and hungry, you just want to sell everything. It doesn't matter. I can't tell you how many times I talk to people at True that are going after big cases. And I'd say, are you sure that you want it? And they're like, of course I want this. It's $400,000 of revenue or $250 or whatever.
If that's the response, then it's not. They're not looking at it the right way, in my opinion.
But it's so hard. 7 years ago, you probably would have had a different opinion too.
I for sure would have had a different opinion. If I'm being honest, I would have had I would have looked at it the same way. But that really is the biggest difference, though. When you get to a point, you can be a little bit choosier about what you work on. Mm-hmm. And I have a pipeline with some very large cases. And when I say I walk in and I think to myself, do I even want to work with this client? I'm not thinking about from a standpoint that I don't want to write the business because I'm competitive. I'm genuinely thinking about it from a perspective, am I the right fit for them and are they the right fit for me? And I think where that makes a difference is the energy that you give off is not of desperation. It's genuinely, I'm here to help. And if you want my help and you're the right fit, great, we can do this. But if you're not, I will tell you. I told 2 large groups last year that you're not a fit for who we are, what I do, but I can help you find somebody. Mm-hmm. And I think that helps boost your brand, it boosts your reputation, because those groups now understand that I'm not going to sell them a bill of goods.
Yeah.
I will walk away if it's not the right fit.
I'm going to tell a little story here with which to ask you a similar question. Excuse me. So a lot of people have been flattering to me around maybe success, the growth of True. We started the Patriot Enterprise and where that's gone. And it has been a pretty remarkable 8.5-year run for me. So transparency, 98% of my net worth after 45. And my kids have I have adult age kids right now. We've had this conversation a little bit. And the story really is this. I worked an entire career, from age 26 until 45 in employee benefits, not 19 years, learning, studying, failing, winning, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, bad decisions, good decisions, hopped around a little bit. So there was a full 19 years of sort of laying, I wouldn't even say laying a foundation. It was laying a foundation, but not purposefully. But it put me in a position to have a conversation with you, or a conversation with Pete Scruggs, our friend, or a conversation with Frank Ebner at McConkey, or I can look at these key agencies that have joined True over the years, that I was able to have a conversation with you, and you knew that I knew what I was talking about.
I felt like you knew what I was doing. You could speak to what I was trying to do, and nobody that I had spoken to that day could articulate what I was doing. And you not only could articulate it, you were adding things to it in that conversation. I thought, well, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought about that. What else does he know? And what else do the other people in the organization know that I don't? That's an area where I can grow. So that's the connection point right there. When you started adding to the equation that I was already building, that added value immediately in the conversation.
By the way, I've discovered I do something. I am going to ask a question, and then I ask the question. I declare I'm going to ask a question, and then I have like a 5-minute conversation, and I go back and ask the question. So I'm going to add more to this before I ask the question.
Okay. We're going to get there eventually.
We're going to get there. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I don't know how good it is for the listener or watcher, but
fast forward 45 seconds.
you know, the same Pete Scruggs sent me a text recently and said, basically, I'd love to see you do a presentation on building a contagious community. This is from Pete. He said, because I think that's your superpower. Everything else falls underneath that. And that started me thinking. I was like, oh, actually I put it on LinkedIn. But I've thought a lot about that because then I started really thinking like, okay, well, if I had to teach a class on building a contagious community, what would that outline look like? What things had to happen rather than just say, well, it's just me. I talked to somebody really recently about this and they were like, oh, I can't explain it. You either have it or you don't. And I was like, nope, no. There have to be elements. One of the things that started our contagious community is I was a subject matter expert. So I could not have gone and built a quote unquote association of car dealerships or construction firms or P&C agencies. Could I have built an association? Sure. But would it be a contagious community? No. Because it had to start with me attracting people like you and Pete and Frank and all the people that have been attracted to that. Here's where I was going with that. You have been in the business how many years now?
10.
10.
A little over 10.
And last year, 2023, was your best quote unquote production year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you brought in enough business last year where most people would consider managing a block that size a success their whole career. And you did that in 1 year. You did that amount of production in 1 year. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't the second or third or fourth or fifth year that you did that. It was the ninth year. Mm-hmm. What about those 9 years? Like, what was the learning curve like for you from year 1 to year 9 that led up to such sort of a transformational year in your career?
Oh man, that's a good question. I don't think it happened. The success that I had in year 9 didn't come from it all builds on itself, but I don't think my story in benefits is really typical because I had a success in the benefits industry the day I got in it. I mean, I was writing business literally the day I got in it. And it's because I had a successful career in finance for 15 years and I had a Rolodex of clients that knew me, trusted me. And it was like this convergence of a couple of things. Somebody with relationships, already understood, complex concepts like finance, and partnered with a really good local organization, a good brokerage firm that had a good reputation, and people. I was trying to solve a problem that their current brokers weren't, and so we just started picking up broker record letters. And so in those first few years, not really being an expert in the benefits industry, I wrote over $2 million in the business. And in doing and bringing on these clients, the people that hired me, my friends, taught me the business. Mm-hmm. And then over the course of those first 3 years, I saw how the business worked, where you had these companies that were getting outrageous increases, but didn't really have a way to control the costs. And it just sent me down. I'm a curious person by nature. So I thought, well, what's causing those costs to increase and what can we do to solve it? And this was the turning point in my career, is when people said, you're not going to be able to solve that. Like, there are a lot of people in this industry that are way smarter than you, bigger companies that are smarter and have more resources than us, and they haven't been able to solve that. What makes you think you can? And I don't know, that triggered me, right. I guess. And I was like, I'm one of those people my wife would tell you, like, don't tell him that he can't do something. Yeah. And so, and that was really the catalyst. So that is one thing I would say, is that has really spawned the business model that we have. Mm-hmm. Was that somebody saying that can't be done. And I thought to myself, we've put people on the moon. Yeah. Like, this isn't that complicated. We're taking money in, we're spending money. We're telling companies you have to start paying more because we're spending too much. Well, what are we spending the money on? Mm-hmm. It's a very simple question. And it's the way companies manage everything else in their business. So I thought, well, let's just manage it that same way, like common sense. And I think I had an advantage over the other people that it just kind of came up in the industry and had been in it for a long time, is that I had an outsider's perspective. People didn't ask the same questions that I did. And I don't think I'm unique in that standpoint. There are a lot of people that have entered the business since then that are asking those same questions and doing similar type work. In fact, there's people that are there's some really good work that's being done right now.
So you came from banking and finance, you had immediate success, but yet you really didn't know the industry. Now you're in like year 2. So you've learned some stuff in 2 years, because You're smart and you're curious. You've written enough business so you've got some reps in. So now years 3 to 9, though, that's a 6-year stretch.
Yeah.
Between years 3 and 9, also, this was a recent social media post of mine where I talked something about, this is directionally accurate, that some people are good salespeople, right? They can communicate clearly and effectively. Some people understand complex concepts and can communicate those. It's the rare person who is a pretty good salesperson. And I don't mean that, a lot of people will hear that and think of that negatively, but no, someone who can have influence over someone to make a decision. Your advice actually helps people. So it's great that you can convince people to take action, but yet you also understand complex things like captives and consortiums, and still the most confusing thing to me in our business, pharmacy. How did you balance in those years the learning and the selling?
So you mentioned reps.
Mm-hmm.
I had the good fortune of building a book of business and having clients that were all trying to solve a similar problem. And I would go to the market and I just started asking people lots of questions. Experts in pharmacy benefit management, experts in captives. And when I say, meeting with experts in those fields, it was not just one person, it was multiple people, it was competitors. And as competitors in that industry, so pharmacy benefit managers, you meet with one, you walk out of that meeting with a list of 12 questions that they've answered. You ask somebody else those same 12 questions, it spawns another 12 questions. Mm-hmm. And so you're just constantly trying to learn what are the key things in this business, what's driving it, and you just kind of replicate that over all the deliverables, all the facets of a health insurance plan. And so it's just being genuinely curious, asking questions, having a business. I never thought about it as insurance. I still to this day don't think about insurance as insurance. It's a business. Whether it's a business of building a firm, a brokerage, or it's a business inside of a business. If you employers don't think about it this way, but I try to encourage my clients to think about this. If you have a health plan and you spend $1 million or $5 or $10 million, that's a division inside of your company. Like, let's manage that as a business unit. And so what are the components of the business unit? How does it compete? People don't think about their health insurance plan as having competing or competitors. It absolutely does. It's an industry inside of an industry. And so if you think about it that way, you can think about suppliers, customers, substitutes, this competitive environment, if you will. And that's how I think about a health insurance plan inside of a company. And when you think about it that way and you research it that way, it just gives you a different perspective. I'm not thinking about deductibles or copays or whatnot.
Right.
We can figure that out. That you can make that whatever you want it to be. It's what are you doing with everything else from a business model standpoint.
So as you've grown over the past decade, you probably started out with maybe a built-in account manager, something that the firm provided. What does your support team look like right now?
It's evolving. So we've hired an ops leader from a big national firm. Actually, a lot of the talent that we've hired has come from big national firms. And I think there's a lot of things that have helped us, because initially when I started at my firm, we were really well known for property and casualty, had a very small, underperforming benefits business. And I was brought in to help grow that and expand it using the model that we have now. But you'd go out and try to recruit folks, establish folks in the market, and they're like, y'all do benefits? Yeah. We know you guys do P&C, but y'all have a benefit shop? Like, yeah. And I think one of the things that's really helped is some of the social media presence has helped, because as I'm educating prospective clients or other advisors in the market, it also is educating prospective employees. And so we've been able to attract national firm talent that sees the problems that are not being solved and it wants to be involved in the solution. And so our team now has grown, and really the focus of the last several years has been growing the service side of our business, not the production side. Because the production side, that runs. We need people to help execute the plans that we build. And so it's more from just having an account manager. The old production model and service model is a consultant and an account manager, and the two of them tag team an account. You sell it, you consult, They do all the paperwork, they handle all the enrollment, they handle whatever's being done on those accounts, right? But the business has got a lot more complex, and we have to manage a lot more things for our clients. And so now you'll have, as opposed to an account manager, you'll have an account executive, much higher level strategic thinker, more like a project manager, has come up in the business, so they know how to do every one of the deliverables. But now they're managing the work product, and you'll have multiple account managers under that person, an analyst, an associate, an advocate that's employee facing. So all of our clients, they don't call 1-800 Blue Cross, they're calling us, and we have a dedicated person who'll help them with a claim issue, getting an ID card, all that sort of stuff. That's a service deliverable, right? And so I think about building a car. Henry Ford perfected that, right? It was, one person doesn't build an entire car. One person is putting the motor in the frame and screwing all the rivets on, and the body is, it moves down that assembly line. And that's really what we've had to build, people that are experts in doing these specific things. You can't ask one person to be an expert in everything, or you're asking for trouble. So that's really that's the biggest thing that's changed. So not only have we had to build a business that competes on a sales perspective and the performance. So our performance is gauged on how do our plans perform. So companies say, I'm tired of rising health insurance costs, I'm going to hire you to fix it. They gauge us based on their performance of that plan. It's almost like an investment advisor that gets hired. How good did my investments, how well do my investments do compared to the market? And so some companies, they hire you and they've got really catastrophic claims going on. They've got multiple cancers, and they've got people taking expensive medications, and just really catastrophic type claims. So we benchmark our performance against not just their historical, which we should show improvement to that. There's certain things I can't help, like 5 people getting diagnosed with cancer, but I can still benchmark the performance of that plan versus what it would have been in the market.
Right.
So am I outperforming? Is my client outperforming the market? So that's one piece that we have to build. Simultaneously, you're having to build an operation to support that. So it's pretty complex. And what I realized very quickly, the operations piece, building the service support, is something I'm not really good at. I'm good at the big ideas, having a vision for what we're trying to do, but actually building the infrastructure behind it is not something I'm gifted at.
Yeah. You and I have talked a lot about that over the past probably 18 months. And the ability to recognize where sort of our superpowers and strengths are, and to bring that talent in around us. I was actually talking to Val Smith, formerly Strimpster for Miss Hot Dog, my wife, about this recently. I think sometimes a lot of us will not give ourselves credit. Sometimes we're only looking for the ways we can improve. It's hard to think oh, I'm pretty good at this sometimes. I think because some not so good characteristics of me early, selfishness, laziness, whatever, I just always brought in people who would do things that I didn't like doing. And so Jack came in with operations. We hired a really good consulting. I've always been really good at sales and relationships. And I think I'm getting better at leadership now. That's been a struggle, because I think the skill set's there for leadership. It's not there for ops and compliance and those things. I've just been lazier when it comes to being a good leader, because it just takes some work. How have you, because now you've talked several times about the complexity of building the business. You're salesperson, you're consultant, you're boss, you're leader, you're dad, husband. How are you managing? You work out all the time. I mean, there's a lot of things you're doing in life. How are you managing all that?
It's hard. It's hard. The first thing I'll say, I have an amazing wife who is kind of the yin to my yang.
We agree with that, and we love Natalie.
Yeah, Natalie is, I actually told her today I don't deserve her, but she's the yin to my yang, because all of the things that I am not good at, she's exceptionally gifted. She's unbelievably organized. I can be organized for certain things, but there's certain things that I'm not as organized with. And so like my personal life, I'm very dedicated to work. It's important to me. It's fun. So I'm not a workaholic, but I really love what I do
Yeah.
because I love the purpose of it. I'm helping people. And that's an awesome feeling when an employee of a client is able to do something they weren't able to do before, and it's not going to break them financially, and the company's going to save. Like, I actually have emails that were traded last night with a client, and it's like life-changing stuff to people.
Yeah.
And that fuels me. It's awesome. But like personally, I think I slack a little bit, you know, being organized there. And Natalie is strong at that, like keeping me focused on like what's important. But yeah, you know, 4 kids, they soccer, dance, 2 boys that do travel baseball. That's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep. I feel like I'm just constantly chasing my tail. Honestly.
Well, you are. I mean, listen, I'm in a different phase of life, right? Val and I have 2 kids that are juniors in college. And they just, by the way, called us this past week. Both of them are not coming home this summer. They're staying in Tuscaloosa to work and go to school. And it's like, wow, we're already empty nesting. Now, I don't even get them over the summer because I love being a dad. So Val and I go to this wellness retreat thing called Skyterra in Brevard, North Carolina every year. We were just there last week. And I was in the sauna by myself. Val had gone on a hike without me. And the best part about this thing is I just leave my phone in the cabin a lot. And so I don't know if I'm addicted to my phone, but I work off of it. You know, I use it too much. But this Skyterra place, it forces me to get away from it. So I'm in the sauna by myself, and I've got the clock on 20 minutes. So I'm doing 20 minutes sauna. Then I go jump in the pool. Then I come back. But I'm thinking, and I'm thinking about work stuff. So I'm thinking about our Shake It Up event that's coming up. I'm thinking about my to-dos for True Learning Academy. I'm thinking about some creative stuff that I'm excited to announce eventually. And then it hit me. My stated purpose, if you remember, we had Carl Richards come in at the owners meeting, and he went through an exercise around what is your statement about money? What does money mean to you? And he gets people to write a purpose statement about money. And mine was, I want to have quality. This is not going to be exactly right, but I want to spend quality time with people I love, whenever and wherever I want, leaving a legacy of love and kindness. That was it. So that's it, right? There's not a single statement about work in there, right? And it just hit me. I'm like, well, if that's my purpose, why is my thought life so much about work? Because if I have a spare minute or time now, I don't have baseball. I don't have all the things you have. So I thought, why would I not spend 30 minutes thinking about Val? Am I meeting her needs? How is she doing? She's retiring. That's a special time for her. Like the same creative energy that I spend on work. What about if I think about Madeline? I've got a daughter who's visually impaired, who's struggling with a few things. My son's a junior. Like, why is my thought life not aligned with my mission, sense, and purpose? I really only share that because I think it was a cool revelation for me, and I'm making some changes around it. But when I think about somebody like you, who's running a rapidly growing business with multiple demands on your time from a business perspective, employees, clients, prospects, peers want your time. Then you have kids, marriage, family, all those things that draw. That is a lot, man.
Yeah, it's reminding me. I probably try to do too much, and when you do too much, you do a lot of there's a lot of things you don't do well. Mm-hmm. And there was a conversation that you and I had in the car driving over here that really hit me. We were talking about a friend of yours that may have some big health issues going on, and you're talking about some conversations that you had about life and maybe mortality and the important things in life. And it's funny. It's not funny. It's ironic that we wait until there's chaos or catastrophe, potentially struggle, before we realize what really matters in life. And I think my comment to you was, why can't we find that perspective in happy times when things are plentiful, and figuring out what's important and focusing on that? Because I really think about my personal life, and maybe where I'm failing in my personal life right now is I love my family. And I remember your statement, your purpose statement when it came to money, because it really resonated with me, especially the be with whoever I want, whenever I want. Because money doesn't motivate me. It's not a motivator to me. I didn't grow up, I didn't come from wealth. My family was like below middle class or below. I grew up in the 80s in Texas in the savings and loan crash and real estate crash. My dad worked construction, but projects were delayed, and he was unemployed big chunks of time. And so I didn't know we weren't wealthy or didn't have a lot.
Right.
We had a dryer and we hung clothes out on a clothes drying line. We didn't run our dryer because we didn't have the money to pay the electric bill. Right? It was like we just hung our clothes. But I didn't recognize that as a kid. I grew up in a house full of love, and we had what we needed, and that's what mattered. And so the money thing, it doesn't motivate me. I want to be secure. I think that's what everybody strives for, is at least to be secure. But like a bigger house or fancier car it's not things that motivate me. But as I think about like the things that are really important, we say they're important. We genuinely in our heart believe they're important. But then when you look at your calendar and how you live your life, the decisions that you make, I'm not intentional enough to see that and recognize, wait a minute, that doesn't really align. That's not aligning with what I really find important in my life. I'm going to look at the time when my kids are gone in college and don't come home, and I'm going to look back to this moment and realize I missed that opportunity, and I'm never going to get that back. And I've already recognized opportunities that I've missed.
Yeah, there's striving for perfection is a fool's errand. Not even healthy. It's so funny. I was actually at lunch today. I was at the pizza restaurant next door, and I walked in. My childhood best friend, a guy named Brian Baker, and his wife Melanie. We grew up together, same graduating class. Grew up, and Brian Baker was my best friend all the way up until high school, until our sports. He was a good baseball and football player. I focused on basketball and tennis. But we were, we almost lived together. We grew up in that little Claysville area I showed you. We went to Claysville school together, and they had a miracle baby. So they adopted 2 kids, didn't think they could have kids. At 50, she got pregnant. At 49, she got pregnant.
Wow.
So they have like a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old. And I was talking to them at lunch today. This was hours ago. I said, I know what you guys are going to say to this, but I miss that age. Like, I would do anything to go back to little Carson and run around the flag football field. And that, regret is the most powerful emotion. I don't have a ton of it, really, because I was a present dad and I coached all the sports teams and all. Even with my travel, I was there for all the stuff. But you still have I think human nature is you look at at missing that. These are interesting. What I like about what we're doing right now, this is less podcasty and more us just having a conversation like we would have riding around. Because that financial statement, what that did for me was to say, because originally it was like I had family written in there instead of people I love. And I was like, wait, there's some friends of mine that I love dearly as much as family. So it helped me just walking through being intentional, being like, oh no, I want to be around the people I love. So then it helped me, let me define those people right now. Who are the people that I would really like to spend time with? So you can write those down. And then you're like, then instead of just spending time, I put quality time. Okay, so that's important. What's quality time? Then you say whenever and wherever I want. And then you get to the money part. You're like, okay, well, if that is what I want to do, then that gives me a purpose to which to go make money. Because it fuels the whenever and... So it gives you all these points which you can define, which I've just been terrible at most of my life. I've just been sort of a fly by the seat of my pants. I'll figure it out kind of guy. So that having those statements that I thought might have been cheesy earlier in my life, it's like, by the way, it just hit me. One of the other things Carl Richards said during that same time is, show me, what's the old quote? Show me someone's checkbook and calendar, and I'll show you what they prioritize. And I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
All right. You know what, Chris?
If you looked at my bank statement, you'd see a bunch of, my wife gives me a hard time. I buy workout equipment.
It's like travel, baseball, and workout.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. I do want to get some of early Chris Hamilton. By the way, what's your whole name?
Christopher Scott Hamilton.
How about that? Yeah. Somehow that has escaped my memory that you're a Christopher Scott. My son is Carson Scott. Where were you born, Chris Hamilton?
I was born in Houston, and I grew up in Stafford, Texas, which is a suburb outside of Houston.
Stafford.
Yep, southwest of Houston.
Did you grow up there?
I grew up there. I went K through 12, same school. So interesting thing about Stafford is in Texas, the only municipally owned school district. So the city owned the school district. And kindergarten through 12th grade was literally on the same property. Different buildings, same property. I graduated high school with people I went to kindergarten with.
That's fantastic. So
It's
similar to
wild.
here. We had different schools, but kind of similar thing, like small town. What was the mascot? Was it Stafford High School?
Spartans.
Was it Stafford?
Stafford Spartans.
The Stafford
We had a legit
Spartans.
We had a legit mascot.
And what colors?
Red and gold.
Oh, who else is red? Like the 49ers?
Marine Corps.
Oh, the Marine Corps colors.
Yeah.
Oh, and so tell me, like,
USC is the same colors, and they're the Trojans.
Oh.
So it's very similar to that.
I love USC colors.
Yeah.
So let me ask middle school. What was middle school Chris Hamilton like?
Awkward.
A lot
I
of
had
us
a,
are
I had a
awkward.
haircut. My wife, she laughs about it. It was like a flat top, but long-haired flat top, combed over to the side. It looked like Vanilla Ice because that was the
sounds
time when
attractive.
Vanilla Ice was. Yeah, it was not. No, it was back when I had hair. She likes to give me a hard time about that. Yeah, it was very awkward. But middle school's awkward for everybody, right?
It sure is.
Yeah.
Were you into sports in middle school? Were you already?
Oh yeah, I did sports since I was a little kid. I did basketball. I didn't do baseball, but I did basketball, soccer, football. My parents got me in football really early. I was a bigger kid growing up, and I was aggressive, and so my parents thought, well, we'll just put him in football. I did karate, that whole thing, and my parents were like, football, we're gonna put him there.
And when did you start? Were you one of the better football players in middle school?
No,
Okay.
I was not good at sports. I had an older brother that mentored me, but it was really that transition year between 8th and 9th grade. I was a late bloomer, and I started training really hard, and I got stronger, and I don't know, there was like a mental switch that went off, and I remember going into high school, and I was just like a B team player, and we showed up for 2 days in high school, and like a switch flipped, and I just like went off. And I just remember the coaches were like, whoa, what happened to you? What happened to you? And so everything changed for me then.
So we're going to get to athletics in a little bit. Your parents.
Yeah.
Tell me about your parents.
My mom, actually funny story about my mom. So I was in my first interview out of college. I'm interviewing at a bank, and two old white dudes sit down in a conference room with me on the opposite side of the table, and nothing against old white dudes, but they were curmudgeons.
Yeah.
And one was the president of the bank. I won't say the name of the bank because people will definitely know who they were. And he said to me, tell me a role model in your life. And I said, my mom. And this guy looked across the table with just disdain, and he said, your mom? Are you a mama's boy?
Huh.
And I said, let me tell you about my mom. My mom was a captain in the Army. During Vietnam, she was a nurse, and she would fly in on helicopters and pick people up and take care of wounded people. Whoa. She carried an M16 and a 45. My mom was a badass. And when she got out of the Army, she worked nights at a nursing home as a shift nurse. And she worked her way up to become the director of nursing at the biggest hospital system in Houston. And I saw my mom repetitively overcoming obstacles. If you put an obstacle in front of her, she went over, under, or through it. She would go through you. She went through a football coach that was bullying my brother. And he called the house and said, we need to have a parent-teacher conference. Can I send your husband up here? And my mom showed up.
Yeah.
And my mom took care of that.
Yeah.
And my mom, it wasn't like a situation where, you know, taking Junior's side because we take Junior's side. It was like legitimately there was an issue going on, but she was like, oh, hell no, you're not going to tell me to stay at home.
Right.
Send the husband up there. I'm going to go up there and take care of it. And what's funny is at age, she kind of hit the pinnacle of her career. And at the end, I was in college, and I was telling you that the internet became kind of a bigger deal in like 1997. I had just started college. And I remember my mom telling me, I'm going to quit my job. I'm like, what? What are you going to do? And she said, I'm going to become a computer programmer. And I thought to myself, I literally said this to my mom, Mom, what in the world are you talking about? You do not even have an email address. What are you talking about? And she's like, I'm going to figure it out. And the hospital wanted to keep her. They actually they paid for her to go to school to become a computer programmer. She ended up running a project management team. Think about when you go to a hospital or a doctor, everything's on an iPad now. All the coding and the charting and everything is done on iPads and computers. You have all these IT people that know how to program things, but they're not clinicians. They don't know what the steps are and how to build out a workflow. You take a nurse who's really smart and knows exactly how the process works. She knows how to program computers. So she figured it out, was the point that I said, where I'm going with this. She was a badass. She still is.
I was ready to run through a wall for your mom. Like I might have just joined the Marines in the break there.
My dad was enlisted. He was enlisted in the Army. He's a sergeant in the Army. And so they had a very similar, that dynamic was in the house where my mom was kind of like the officer of the house. Like she kind of set the vision. My dad was the enforcer. And my dad, he didn't say a lot. Yeah. So so my mother and my father divorced when I was very young. I think I might have been 2 months old. My mom got remarried when I was 18 months old. I don't ever call him my stepdad. He's my dad.
Yeah.
My first memories of life are my dad. And he taught me everything I know. He made me into who I am. Like I love him. He's probably the most important person in my life. I love him. But he was very firm, but lovingly firm. But he was the kind of guy, like we slept in bunk beds.
Yeah.
And my mom would come in the morning and turn on the light. All right, boys, get out of bed. Mom's not gonna do anything about this. We're gonna keep sleeping. But if you heard Dad's boots coming down the hallway, you got up. Because if you were not up by the time my dad got in there, he'll walk in, literally hit the deck, and if you didn't, he would yank you out of bed. You're getting up one way or the other. You get voluntarily or involuntarily, but that's kind of how my dad was. So, but my dad was a man's man. I grew up in a very unique environment in my neighborhood that I grew up. It was almost like King of the Hill in a way.
Okay.
It was a big group of guys.
Yeah.
Very communal, like a tribe. Everybody in my neighborhood knew everybody. Everybody did things together. Like we'd go on fishing trips together, camping trips together, hunting trips together. At Super Bowl, everybody in the neighborhood came together. It was like a big family. It was really weird looking back on it, but it was awesome.
Yeah.
And the thing that I thought was the most interesting as a kid growing up, my dad was very strong, like mentally strong. He didn't say a whole lot. And just like looking back on it now, he was kind of the leader of that pack. And whenever people were going to do something, they always looked to Tom, like, Tom, is this a good idea or not? And they gave the say to my dad, yay or nay. Yeah. That's not a good idea, boys. We're not going to do that tonight. They get a little rowdy.
Yeah.
Nah, boys, that's not a good idea. We're not going to do that tonight. And the rest of the guys, there's like 10 guys were like, okay, Tom said no.
Right.
Or Tom said yes, we're going to go do that. But I always knew my dad had control of every situation we went into. I felt very safe with my dad. If something happened, like my dad was going to handle business. My dad used to give us a hard time. Like if we didn't obey, my dad would say, I used to teach men how to kill somebody with their bare hands 13 different ways. Don't think I can't take care of you. You know, he was that kind of guy.
Yeah.
He was real.
Yeah. Now, are they both still living? Are your parents still living?
My dad passed away in 2020, June of 2020. And my dad was the kind of guy that he would teach you things, but not sit down, son, I'm going to teach you something. He would just start teaching you by living life.
Yeah.
And he taught me things all the way up until the day. It's actually some of the biggest lessons he taught me were literally right before he died. That really hit me. So I don't know where I was going with all that, but that's my mom and my dad. My dad was just a really strong fatherly figure, taught me everything I knew, taught me how to work on cars, taught me how to build things.
That's lovely. What is one, you said a lot about your dad, but what's something that if nobody knew him, you would want them to know about your dad?
My dad cared about people. Yeah. I've seen my dad. He was the kind of guy that would stop and help somebody on the side of the road if they're broken down. He was the kind of guy that in my neighborhood, somebody that didn't even speak English, literally was driving their car down our street and their car broke down. and my dad helped him get their car running. And then he went in the house and like, you know, out of the sock drawer, got his cash and gave this guy his cash. And I remember this because I was probably 7 years old. And I said to him, Dad, why did you give that guy money? And the guy had a wife and I remember some kids. And my dad said, because that guy needed it more than me. And we didn't have a lot of money when I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
That was in the 80s and we were broke. But my dad gave some guy, probably an immigrant, right? You know, there's a lot of talk about people, immigration and whatnot, but my dad, he saw through all that.
Yep.
My dad he loved people. And I think you'd really like my dad because he didn't have the saying that kindness always wins, but my dad, that's what he espoused. That's what he lived his life, was be kind to everybody.
You know what strikes me is that I was talking earlier about meaning and purpose and how work wasn't engaged in it. And how, when I asked you that question, you said he loved people. It just kind of struck me that that's what we all want to have as our legacy. In some way, most of us don't want someone to say he was a very successful guy. You would want someone to say, what a sweet person, what a kind person, what a loving person, what a loyal person. Like all the adjectives, and like hardworking and rich never come into play.
Yeah, he loved people, and this is one thing I love about my dad, and I wish I could channel this. Like, this is the one thing he couldn't teach me. Stay cool. Stay cool. My dad was always, well, I say always, my dad was in the proverbial shit hits the fan moments. Yeah. My dad was cool. He never lost it. I'll tell you this real quick story about, just kind of really highlights this. Every year we took a guy's trip. We'd all load up our boats. We would drive out the mouth of this river, and there was an island outside on the coast. It wasn't really even an island. It was just kind of like a pop-up with like dirt with trees or whatever, but we would like make it an island, and we would stay there for like a week. We would camp, we would fish, the guys drank beer all day and night and whatever, and just kind of were wild guys. Well, this one particular year, I was about 10 years, maybe 11 years old, and we knew there was a storm coming in the initial night, and there was talk about, guys, should we like delay the start of this trip by a day because there's gonna be some pretty bad storms potentially. And you know, guys all getting together like, we're not gonna stop for a storm. What are you talking about? Let's go. And everybody starts hooping and hollering, you know, yeah, we're gonna go, let's go. And so I'm like, all right, let's go. So we set up our camp. We're done before dusk. Everybody's hanging out. I go to bed. I'm in a tent, and I get awoken because the tent blows down. It's raining, heavy wind. And we've got a weather radio, and they're saying on the tornado is on the ground, and they're saying where it's at, and they're like, it's where we are.
Right.
The boats. The wind has beached all of our boats, so you can't get the boats back out into the water. You're not getting them out. You're stuck. You can't get back to shore. You're done. You're on this island. There's a tornado coming. This really freaked me out because I saw grown men crying.
Oh, wow. Like
they were freaked out. My dad was calm, and my dad walked over to me, and he handed me a shovel, and he said, dig. What are you talking about? He says, dig a hole and let's get in it. And we just started digging a hole. And my dad was calm. All these other guys are literally running around. Let's get the boats out. They're trying to push the boat. Like, Dad, let's get the boats. Let's try to get the boats back. My dad's like, nope, we don't have time for that. Dig a hole fast. Let's go. Let's dig a hole. And that's what we did. But fortunately, we were fine. Everything was cool. Tornado missed us. But I'll never forget that moment where just like everything was going wrong and like people were freaking out, and my dad was like, dig, we're gonna dig a hole. You know, it's interesting. I mean,
he grew up in a generation without social media, without outside influence, almost like where you were taught to handle your business. And it's almost like not PC to say you're a man's man right now. It's almost, sometimes masculinity is frowned upon, but yet
until men are needed.
Until you need it.
Until men are needed.
Yeah.
And you're seeing a shift in that now in our society, where people are complaining like, where are the men at? Well, we've kind of casted them out of our society.
Well, something that's been a thread on a lot of my conversations lately with you, with others, is how we seem to be attaching meaning and purpose to things that aren't very meaningful or lack purpose. Money, success, status, ego, and everything points back to experiences with the people you love and having impact on people. Okay, I'm going to jump back into something. Football was a pretty big part of your life. So you had the switch that went off in high school, and then you were a very good high school football player, correct?
Yep.
And you played offensive line. Is that right? Offensive and defensive line.
In high school, I played linebacker, and I played offensive line. I played both ways.
Okay. And then you went and you played football in college.
I didn't have any intent of playing in college, but I did end up playing in college. Yeah, I played at a small school out in West Texas.
What school is? What's the name?
Hardin Simmons.
Do you know really how many similarities we have in life? So first of all, my dad, who I consider my dad, is not my biological dad, but yet he raised me. Accidental athletes. There was something else that you said that was the same. Just interesting how when you start to talk to people, there's these strange bits of commonality, almost matrix-like. Britt, we need a matrix like some kind of thing every time I comment on the matrix. So how do you end up accidentally playing college football?
Well, when I was done with my senior year, I'd gotten letters and recruited to play football at different schools, and I didn't really have an interest in it for some reason. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had kind of like a mixed upbringing. I was I raised livestock growing up, and I was president of my FFA, so I was really involved in ag. That's what I wanted to be a rancher when I grew up. I was going to go to college to study agriculture. I wanted to be a rancher. And I just thought, well, that's what I'm going to do in my career. I'm not going to play football. And the catalyst to me not playing football, I was also a power lifter in high school. And when I got done playing my senior year, powerlifting's in the spring. And so when I got done playing high school, the season in the fall, I just went on this crazy mission to lose a ton of weight because I wanted to get into a lighter weight class. And so my playing weight in high school, I'd lost like 30 something pounds. So I'd kind of shriveled up for powerlifting. And so there's no way at that point I'm going to play football in college. I just lost all my weight.
Can we clarify what shriveled up means?
I probably got down to like 230.
Okay. That's what I thought.
But I mean,
yeah, to be an offensive lineman.
Yeah,
I get it.
So when I actually went to college, I didn't go as an offensive lineman. I went to be a linebacker because at 230 you can be a linebacker in college, especially in a Division III school. Like you can be a linebacker. And when I got there, I just thought, I'm going to be really good.
Yeah.
And I realized really quickly because I thought this is Division III football. Like I got this. This is nothing. It's like high school. And then when I realized very quickly, I got humbled, like almost at the very beginning of my experience. Because people don't realize this. I'll tell you two funny stories. People don't realize we were nationally ranked. I mean, we played for a national championship. We made it to the semifinals, quarterfinals every year. Like I think I was 47-5 my entire career. So we won a lot of games. We traveled the country. We beat a lot of teams. We beat a lot of Division II teams. Kids that play in any level of college, they were the best in their high schools. They were the best one or two kids. And I didn't realize that when I showed up. And I literally, as a freshman, I got knocked out, like cold, like a boxer getting knocked out. I don't remember the day, but it was on video. There's a video of it. And the guy, a safety hit me so hard, he knocked me out cold. I hit the ground, had to be helped up. Don't remember that. And it was very humbling. And yeah.
Well, I've told people this story because I accidentally played college basketball. I'm not going to go through the whole story, but I was a really good shooter when I was open, right? Division II basketball, same thing. Everybody's the best player on their team. And as a guard, everybody's 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". It wasn't open a lot. It became a whole different kind of game. Playing against a 6'5" kid that can jump out of the gym is so athletic. It's yeah. And really, college athletics, what I learned is you have to love it because there's not huge crowds usually practicing at weird hours a lot of times. You got to really love it.
I think that is what translated in my career. It wasn't about the games, and it wasn't about the outcome of the games. I was in love with the process and I was in love with the work.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was that got me going.
Yeah.
If you think about it, right? You win a game that's a Saturday, you play for 3 or 4 hours, you win the game. All right, cool. But what about the entire week leading up? How many hours went into that? But then what people don't think about is how many hours went in the off season, in the summertime, all the work that has to go into that. If you don't love the actual work and the process, you're going to have a really hard time being successful. And so you really need to find something that you can get behind, you're willing to dedicate to. You have to dedicate to something.
That translates into everything. It reminds me of my brother who, he was a professional musician until about 28. And he landed a gig touring with Sugarland back when they were really popular, the country group. And actually I believe he actually even gave Christian Bush mandolin lessons is how he kind of got that gig. And was really excited to go on tour. And to talk to him now, what he says is, the 3 hours you're on stage is a high like no other. You just can't explain it. Then you pack up your gear, you get on the bus, you drive all night, you maybe sleep on the bus, and maybe you get to like a hotel somewhere. You sleep, you wake up, you find somewhere to do laundry, you go to like a mall to eat, you go rehearse, you go have that other 3 hours on the, you get this crazy adrenaline, and then you pack up your stuff. And he's like, man, 3 hours became the rest of it became not good enough, fun enough to keep going. But he said there are some people who love the road so much that they want to be touring musicians forever because they just love it. They love the town to town, the new people. Just interesting how really finding something that you love the process helps you like win the game.
Yeah.
That was somewhat like that sounded. Maybe we can capture that quote. That sounded really good. Now this part where I realized it sounded good and talked about it, let's cut this part out. So you play football, and then do you go right into banking?
No, I got into commercial real estate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How old are you when you go into commercial real estate?
I mean, right out of college.
So like 22, 23?
Yeah, I was like 22. Couldn't decide what I wanted to do with my career. It was like right after WorldCom, Enron. We're in a recession. I thought, I didn't want to become a banker. I was like detested the idea.
Right.
And for some reason, commercial real estate seemed like a good idea. And I went to work for a firm in Dallas as a trainee. It didn't work out. I actually got fired like on the second week. So I got hired by a partner to train under.
Right.
And at the end of my first week, she came to me and she says, "Hey, I got some bad news, but it's okay. I'm leaving. I don't want to be here anymore. I had a disagreement with some of the other partners. I'm out, but it's going to be okay. You're going to work under a different partner and it'll work out." And then I'll never forget this. I was with that partner for a week. He called me into his office and he said, "You're never going to be successful in this business. You don't have what it takes. You're never going to be make it in sales. But I wish you luck." And that really messed me up for a long time. It like really got in my head. Cause at that point, this is one of the things I really want to teach my kids is how to bounce back from failure.
Yeah.
I don't think I experienced enough failure growing up. Things happened pretty easily for me growing up. And that was like, I had on the sports field, a couple things that happened that, I had to really try to bounce back from. But on the whole, I'd been successful in everything I'd done up to that point. And then to get hit with that, it sent me in kind of a bad spiral. And I thought, oh my gosh, I guess I will get into banking. And so, yeah, that's how that whole thing happened. And I just had a series of good mentors, and it took a few years to come back out of my shell.
It's interesting. It's almost like at that age, with you in athletics, that's like almost like a coach telling you suck, because you're still kind of at that early. I love talking about this age because my kids are this age a little bit, and I like trying to think of like 22-year-old Carson Smith versus 22-year-old you and me, and like it's just interesting to me. A lot of our listeners also will have kids. Well, not everybody. There's a lot of them that'll have kids that are getting into that age where they start thinking about what's the kid going to do, and they're in college or they're about to get out of school. Something that's come up again and again is this thing about kids experiencing, I'm going to use the word pain, or discomfort or challenges earlier on, because it's unequivocally true. You know, on some random Joe Rogan episode, I don't even remember which it was, one of his guests said, or maybe it was even him, but he's like, the worst thing that's happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. Mm-hmm. Meaning, if you're 18 years old and you don't make the cheerleading squad, and that's the worst thing that's ever happened in your life,
it's relative.
You fall apart, but other people are looking at you going like, hey, there's worse things in the world.
Yeah.
But that person has a much harder time adjusting to life than someone who act like your dad or your mom, who saw some shit like growing up and had to get over it. You know, this is going to be, we already said one slightly political thing here about masculinity. I'm going to say another one.
Hit me.
I'm wondering, this is going to, I so hesitate to say anything like this because I stay away.
We can cut it out if it's bad.
I was about to say
I'll
that.
tell you if it's bad. Go ahead.
Well, here's the deal. It's not bad. My concern about it is what's bad. I'm concerned about the use of therapy with kids.
Oh, say more.
So I'm not saying that therapy is not good or needed and that it was not underutilized for the majority of our lives or the last 50 years. It's obviously good and helpful, and I'm not degrading it at all or denigrating it. But we have a bunch of kids that start with therapy so early, focusing on how important their problems are. And it's magnifying those problems to where in most of our lifetime, pre-internet, pre-therapy, you had tough shit that happened and you just had to deal with it.
Yeah.
And resiliency became a characteristic. And I think we're taking resiliency away from some kids by saying, hey, let's validate your problem, let's talk about it, and let's talk about it for 7 years. So from age 15 to 22, 16 to 23, a lot of kids now have a platform or a person that basically elevates their problems. I just think we may be doing some harm to our kids.
Yeah.
Listen, first of all, let's hope Madeline Smith, my daughter, never hears this podcast because she would yell at me tell me I didn't know what I'm talking about. There's actually some literature coming out around this. I'm not just talking out of my ass. There is actually some literature coming out. I'm not saying people don't need therapy. I'm saying that half of all girls under 25 are now on anxiety medications. Mm-hmm. Half?
Well, I think that's a different topic. I think that's a different topic than just therapy itself. So I have a couple of thoughts on it. I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying, but maybe a different way to look at it would be what type of therapy and what's the quality of the therapist and how are they helping somebody? Because I think therapy can be viewed from a standpoint of helping you identify what the real problem is and then trying to help you work through a process to solve the problem. But there are some clinicians that will, I mean, look, people that are on regular therapy, like that's what pays the bills. So if I can just get you to come in and keep talking about the same thing and, here's a prescription to keep you, and I'm not saying that's bad, but I'm just saying there's different types of therapists and there's different quality.
Oh yeah.
But to help, I always think it's a good idea if somebody's struggling with a problem. I mean, I've seen therapists and psychologists. I think it's really helped me work through some problems in my life. I probably need more of it. But I think I've seen different ones, and I can tell you some of them are really high quality and some of them are really bad and they're not good. It's just like any sort of medicine. You have some that are good and some that are not. And
I think it's the prevalence of it. This is what really, actually, even us having this conversation is healthy. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I have to worry about saying it is unhealthy.
10 years ago, you wouldn't have had that problem because people would have agreed like, yeah, we don't need therapy. But I think now, I mean, man, people are struggling with a lot of things. I think think about the pandemic.
Yeah.
Life has gotten really hard just from like social media. And I think social media is deteriorating our society in a lot of ways because people have unrealistic expectations of what life really is, what success really is. I know people who put on this facade on social media, like I've got this perfect life and everything is perfect. But I know these people and I'm like, dude, your life is like mine. It is not perfect. Like we got a lot of issues and like the fact that we portray this that's why if you look at my personal social media, I don't post much.
Yeah.
Professionally, I will post stuff, but I'm very private.
You know
like from a personal standpoint. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I just think there's maybe more than one way to look at it.
Actually, I would. This is the issue. I can't just say what I feel without almost like saying a paragraph before it.
Yeah.
That's
what's wrong with our society, is that we have to disclaim everything because people that don't agree with you are going to flame you for it. And I think that's what's wrong.
So I agree with everything you said. We actually don't disagree. What I believe is there's a good therapist, someone who needs therapy. First of all, I don't think everybody needs therapy. I think people who need therapy. But does every person? No.
So sometimes you have to learn how to work through things on your own.
I'm in no way talking negatively about the need or the positive effect of therapy for those people who need it. Zero am I talking about that. I could say that 1,000 times, someone would still give me shit for what I'm saying.
For sure.
Well, what I'm saying is when a kid has therapy for 10 years from age 15 to 25, I'm not sure that's the healthiest thing from starting so young, because there's going to be some bad therapists. If you could guarantee me that every therapist was going to be good and healthy, at such an impressionable age for kids, is it better for a kid to see a mediocre therapist or not to see a therapist? I have no idea the answer to that. I just know that those delicate young minds, it can be dangerous to sort of empower this victim mentality to elevate a problem that just persists.
My thoughts on that, this is how I look at my therapist, who's a psychologist. I don't want to come to him to talk about a problem and him just to listen to me. I want him to help me pick the prism up and turn it a little bit to look at it in a little bit different light. But the most important thing I need from him is almost like a physical therapist. Teach me how to solve this problem myself, because I'm likely to encounter something similar to it down the road. Mm-hmm. Empower me with the skills and the thought process, the process, the model, the mind map, if you will. And I tell you, one for me that's really helped me is I have a short fuse. I'm impatient. Mm-hmm. Like, I want results. I want it now. Like, we're going to figure this out. Like, that's a problem. I have a short fuse. And, it's helping me think through, okay, what's the trigger to that? How do you know when that's starting to happen? How do you intercept that thought? What do you do about it? He trained me how to, 'cause guess what? I'm going to encounter that the rest of my life, probably. Mm-hmm. That's probably an important skill for me to get in front of. And so I don't have to go talk to him about, man, I have a short fuse. I keep blowing up. What's going on? And let me magnify that problem. He needed to teach me, here's how you need to address that. Yeah. And you don't need to talk to me about that anymore unless you can't figure out how to implement what I just told you. And I haven't had to talk to him about that issue anymore because he's helped me figure it out. And so, there may be other issues, right, that people deal with, and they can be perpetual and whatnot. But I think they should be teaching you how to solve a problem, and then how to apply that solution in other areas of your life as it comes up down the road.
The last comment on this, then we're certainly moving on. This has actually been healthy for me, because the first time I've really been comfortable in a public setting, sharing an opinion that might be looked down upon, even though it shouldn't be, because I'm disclaiming it to hell and back. But you're a grown, smart man, and you can take a proactive stance with your therapist about what you need. 14 or 15-year-old girl can't do it.
Probably not.
Anyway, let's move on. I feel like I've had a breakthrough. I feel like I've had therapy right here.
Talk to me, Scott. Tell me more about that.
Maybe I forget everything I said. Now I need therapy.
No, I mean, look, here's the beautiful thing about any society. People are going to have differing opinions, and differing opinions should be welcomed. Mm-hmm. It's actually what's allowed us to survive as a species and thrive. Mm-hmm. Somebody would say, hey, that is a bad idea to get in a boat and go across the ocean because the world is flat and you're going to fall off the end of the world. Yep. And somebody else said, I don't agree with that. I think the world is round, and I think it's going to help me find a faster route to India. Yeah. You guys can stay here on land, but I'm going to go check this out. Mm-hmm. if we didn't have differing opinions, we wouldn't have the society we have today. Like, and that's literally everything. Whether you're talking about traveling into space or building a car or whatever, different types of economies. It's everything in our world is controversial. There's people that are going to agree with it, people that are not. It's the actual coming together and honing out the idea that helps people figure out, is this really good or is this not?
Yeah. I think we're getting closer to that. No, I really do think. Did you
feel
see?
Like we're getting further apart.
Well,
you get flamed and canceled.
Here's what's happening. I do think we reached a height of that a couple of years ago. I think COVID was the height of cancel culture at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So, we're still way at the top of division, but actually, our buddy Jim Vandehei, who's spoken at a couple of events, just had an article this week about how we're closer together than we really think we are. We're simply, the fringes and the media have hijacked society. Like, they actually had a bunch of what do Americans agree on? And even like 80% of Americans would argue for the right to peacefully bear arms. 80%. That's a shocking number because they asked the question in a non-political way.
Yeah.
Like, wait, 80% of us think we should have a gun in some way. That's not what one would think based upon the news. Like, in the 90th percentile is the desire for free speech and the right to assembly. And so when you really...
But what does that mean, though?
It means we're being controlled.
No, what is it? The question, what does it mean? We have the right to free speech. There's a lot of talk about censorship now.
Yeah.
I mean, just go into Google right now and type in censorship is, see what the most recommended searches are. I challenge you to do that.
This is an example
Okay.
of how only the fringes hold the fringe opinion, but they've tricked us into thinking that those are commonly held opinions.
That it's mainstream.
It's not mainstream. If you took 100 people in a room and you gave them what is censorship, 80 of us would agree.
Yeah.
The 10 over here and 10 over here would be like wackos. Most people actually agree. We have been tricked by media, by the 24/7 news cycle, by Fox only talking to conservatives, by CNBC only wanting to talk to liberals, inflaming the bases more and more and more. Social media giving you these little snippets. Kids now, like just only seeing one side of an issue. We actually agree on way more than anybody would think because we're tricked. We're literally tricked.
I believe that. I believe that just based on the experience I had today. On my flight, I was a non-full flight. As I got on, you couldn't get a whole row to yourself, but you could have a middle seat open. And as I was getting onto the plane, I intentionally sat by somebody that didn't look like me, that I literally thought, this guy is probably going to have a difference of opinion. But I'm genuinely curious, and I hope there's an opportunity for me to talk to him. And what I realized in that conversation was several things. It's mind-blowing that we're having this conversation now, because like a lot of the conversations we're having are things that have happened just in the last few days I've had experience with. And what I really think, if you just think about picture the person that you think is probably opposite of you, whatever you are politically, socially, so economically, whatever it is. We all want the same thing. We want security, growth, good things for our kids, good education, safety. We want to have an opportunity to prosper. Like these are things, we all want the same things. We just have maybe a little bit of a difference of opinion on how to get there. But it's the coming together and actually talking about it in a constructive way that will help us find. But nothing seems to be constructive right now. It's inflammatory. It's me versus you versus us together.
Yeah.
And whenever we decide to butt heads, automatically, if I've identified you as my opponent, my enemy, I'm not even thinking from the logical side of my brain what it is that you're saying and does it make sense. I'm thinking about, I need to just continue to stand on my business, and you're going to have to come to my way of thinking, versus maybe Scott has a good point here. We should be curious.
When you have one-on-one conversations. So I mentioned Skyterra, where Val and I were this weekend. That place has 19 cabins. Sometimes people are doubling up in a cabin. Maybe there were 28 people there this week. And you eat every meal together in these communal tables. You do workouts with them of all ages. So for example, I could be in a circuit workout working to my max capacity, and a 70-year-old woman is over there working to her max capacity in the same workout. You're with people, you're in the pool, you're doing all these things. I know by all the conversations that there were several people that I really got along with, that if we would have started talking about politics or issues, we would have had differences in opinion. I'm talking about, I have these phone numbers now. We've texted post-event. There'll be some of these people that will stay in my life forever, but because we had a relationship first, we'll be able to have a conversation about politics. And I believe, because we know each other's hearts, intentions, even if we disagree, you just disagree.
Yeah.
You just simply disagree. But you just have to have those conversations with people to realize we're not that different.
And we can't, I think it's a mistake to judge people based on their belief. That guy is bad because he doesn't believe what I believe. I think that's
Oh, it's terrible. That doesn't make a bad person.
No, just, I always wondered, I'd have these conversations with people and I thought to myself, how do they not understand that this is a bad idea? Economically, this is a bad idea. Financially, this is a bad idea. And I started thinking about, it was one night I just asked myself this question, this person that I'm talking to, that I'm having this disagreement with, what's their background? Mm-hmm. What have they experienced in life? What's their education? And then I had the realization, the person I'm arguing about this economic issue with didn't study economics in college or finance, doesn't work in a business, doesn't run a business, doesn't have that sort of mindset. So they're thinking about this problem from a different set of experiences and education, different upbringing. Of course, they're going to have a different perspective. Mm-hmm. They're going to have a different perspective on the issue. And it doesn't make their perspective less valuable. It just makes it different.
I would even go so far as to say, I actually mentioned this in a presentation at our owners meeting. Until you're willing to admit that you might be wrong on everything. Like, I fully say, I'll have the conversation with my kids, which will have differences of opinion sometimes. I'm willing to say I might be wrong on all of this. It doesn't mean I don't think I'm right. It doesn't mean I don't stand behind my opinion and work based on that. It's just a subtle acknowledgement, like, who am I to think I'm right 100% of the time? It's impossible. I have to be wrong about some things, which means I could be wrong about a bunch. Quite often I am wrong about a bunch. But not only is that person different education, different background, different upbringing, they might be right. So until you're willing to argue their position and really understand it, it's hard to really have a acceptable argument with them. Because otherwise I'm just saying, this is my opinion based upon my belief. I'm pretty sure I'm right. I'm pretty sure yours is wrong. No, mine could be wrong too. So let's talk about which one might be right.
Yeah.
And there's just, nobody has the patience for that.
I would agree with that. The other thing, as I've gotten older, the older I get, the more I realize I don't know. Mm-hmm. When I was in my 20s, I thought I knew everything. Yeah. And then, life teaches you that you don't know. But it literally, the more that I learn, the more I realize I don't know. And therefore, I need to ask. And when I find somebody that has a difference of opinion, whereas I would try to sharpen my argument and think a rebuttal to everything they said, I've now flipped it a little bit. And I think to myself, let me just suppose that they're right. Mm-hmm. Let me put myself in their shoes and argue for their position instead of arguing against it. Mm-hmm. And it really changes the way I think about a problem. And that can be applied to anything.
Yeah, man. The best thing that sometimes that I've found lately is to ask questions instead of make statements. So instead of like argue with someone, just ask them questions. Like, what would you do in this situation? What about this? Why do you think that way? Let me give you a hypothetical. What would you do in this scenario? Because sometimes we all know that if people have to change their own mind. Most of the time, you're not convincing someone, especially if it's a belief. Like something that somebody really believes in, that's hard for somebody to change. You can change an opinion, but a belief is tough. Mm-hmm. Like the only way really that's asking them questions for them to like, oh, maybe he's onto something there. Chris Hamilton, guess what? We're way over time. Can you even believe that?
No.
Yeah. we have not covered so much work conversation that I think there's going to have to be episode 2.
Could do
Chris
that.
Hamilton part 2.
Part 2. We could do that.
What if we named it Chris Hamilton Doo-Doo?
You can do whatever you want. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Well, to wrap up here, actually, you know what? We can make it as long as we want. This is so you came to Lake Gunnersville the first time for the Josh Kelly thing we did? Is that the first time?
I don't remember. I've been here like 4 times, I think.
I know you came for the Josh Kelly thing. I know you came for kind of a unique Operation Surprise and Delight for the True Team. And there was another time, I think this is your 4th visit. Mm-hmm. You've mentioned several times you could live here.
I think I'm going to live here at some point.
What makes you say that you could or might actually end up, like, what is it about Little Lake Gunnersville that you love?
Man, it's all. So I grew up in a town outside of Houston. And most people think big city, but it actually kind of had somewhat of it felt a little bit like Gunnersville, but imagine Gunnersville attached to Houston.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
It's now the city's like far surpassed. It's like enveloped my town that I grew up in, but it feels like you're stepping back in time. It almost feels like the 50s here.
Yeah, a little. Sometimes it does.
Yeah, like you go into trivia night down at the brewery, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody knows everybody. Mm-hmm. And there's something that's really neat about that. People went to school here. People grew up here. People live here now. A lot of people.
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
And I think it's far enough away from the big cities that progress hasn't diminished what this town really is yet. It eventually will happen.
We're fighting it. Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah, eventually will happen. But it's beautiful scenery, rolling hills, the changes in topography. The lake is beautiful. It's outside of major cities, but you have easy access to major cities. You can go to Birmingham or Huntsville. Mm-hmm. So you have access to major amenities, but you're far enough outside of the big cities. And it just has a really good feel. It just feels homey to me.
It's interesting. I never thought I would live here growing up, and I just wanted to get back, and now I love it. Do you know what I just realized? This is going to be the longest one ever, longest Super TRUEper, because I haven't asked you about your children. And Val, aka Miss Hot Dog, will murder me, because every time I do a podcast, she just fast forward to the work stuff. She's like, I want to find out about their kids and their family. So how old are your kids? So
we have a blended family. I have 2 10-year-old daughters. They're twins. They're my wife's daughters. And then I have 2 boys, 10 and 13.
So 10, 10, 10, and 13.
Yeah, 3 10-year-olds that they're basically a week apart from each other, and then a 13-year-old.
Wow.
So it's, yeah.
And so let's just go oldest to the 13-year-old.
Yep.
What's going on with 13-year-old?
Brainiac. He's super smart.
Is this the one that wanted to go to MIT? He
wants to go to MIT.
Okay.
He actually, for his father-son trip, that's where he wanted to go. We went to Boston, and we stayed on the campus, and we toured the school, and we went to a Red Sox game, and it was awesome. A really beautiful part of the country.
Wow. Does he still want to go there?
Still wants to go there. Well, this is the crazy thing. When I was graduating high school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. Since this kid's 7 years old, he's wanting to be an aerospace engineer. He wants to design rockets for Elon Musk.
Wow.
And he's said that since when I was 7 years old. My grandfather worked for NASA for many years. He was a physicist, and I thought, I want to be an astronaut when I grow up. That's what a lot of kids say. He's never wanted to be an astronaut. He's always wanted to design the rockets. And this is what he said to me. I said, son, when you're later on in high school and you're looking at colleges, I'll take you to MIT to tour the campus. We can do an official campus visit. And he said, no, Dad, I want to go tour the campus now because when I'm working hard, I want to be able to visualize what I'm working for.
Wow.
And I thought, how can I argue with that? Like, that's pretty mature. He was 12 years old at the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, well, you want to, and I believe in that, visualizing it, knowing what you're working for. Because that's when the work gets hard, you got to have a purpose.
What's his name?
Lane.
All right, Lane. I'm going to be following you. You know, for what it's worth, Huntsville, Alabama.
Yes.
Boeing, Marshall Space Flight Center, NASA. They're still lobbying for Space Force to be here instead of in Colorado Springs. So a potential Hamilton family compound. Not
Out here.
not out of the question.
Not out of the question.
All right. Who is the next oldest 10-year-old?
So it'd be Cullen, who's 10. He's a lot like me. Everybody says he's like me. Stubborn, very kind. He's probably kinder than I was. But he's a very loving, sweet kid.
Yeah.
But he's also very aggressive. He's like sweet and salty.
Okay.
Mixed into one. Very good athlete. Probably going to be in sales when he grows up.
I think, I don't know if I told you this about Carson. I think I've mentioned a couple of times, every Monday night now he does an open mic stand-up in Tuscaloosa.
Oh, that's a great experience.
Yeah. And he's like, I'll say, what was your topic tonight? He's like, you don't want to know? I'm like, okay, let me know when I want another topic. And so all I know, Britt, you'll find this funny. I haven't talked to him about this Monday night yet, but he's like, I had to sing Boys to Men, I'll Make Love to You to a guy in the front row. Because as part of my bit, I wanted him to like role play with me, and he didn't know the song. And so to me, that's just, that whole thing sounds funny.
Yeah. So
I think he'll either be a comedian or go into sales. I saw his first bit. He's not that funny yet, so maybe sales.
Yeah. Well, the skill set that you have to get up on stage will actually translate into sales.
I've told him, by the way, if you listen to this, Carson, it was funny. I was just making a joke. I've told him how proud just the courage to go do that. Mic in hand, doing crowd work, crazy good. So possible, did you say Cullen?
Cullen, yeah. Cullen.
Yeah, wasn't that one of the vampires' names in the
I didn't know that because I never saw that, but people have said that. He's also named after...
The fact I know that is probably not good, probably.
Yeah. He had daughters.
Yeah.
So,
okay, now, I know probably people lump the twins in together all the time, though.
They do, yeah.
One at a time.
Inslee. Yep.
Okay.
She's they're both very sociable girls.
Mm-hmm.
She's more of kind of like the athlete. So she's really does club soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And really funny.
Yeah.
Super funny. Very witty. Mm-hmm. Super witty. And then you have Elise. She's into dance. And they're both girly, but she's a little bit more girly than Inslee. Also pretty funny. A little more dramatic.
Oh, I love that.
A little more dramatic, yeah.
Man, that's 4 kids, busy life.
Yeah, it is. And a dog. We have a golden doodle named Ranger, who is probably the best behaved kid that we have.
Sometimes they're hyper, so.
He is.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's got sport mode and chill mode.
Okay.
He knows when to flip the sport mode on. That dog is always willing to go hang out. I take him everywhere with me. He goes everywhere.
Well, and you mentioned Natalie before, but a true team favorite. Everybody loves Natalie.
Yeah, I love Natalie too. She's great. She's the best part of my life. Yeah.
Well, I'll be seeing you soon. We have our True Learning Academy in Fort Worth.
Yes.
In like 10 days, 11 days.
In Cowtown. Yeah. You guys are going to see some of the best at Cowtown.
We have Billy Bob's for a night. Cowboy prom.
World's largest honky tonk.
That's perfect for us.
Yeah.
Everybody embedded in the waiver everybody signed was like injury waiver for the mechanical bull.
Yeah. I'll say this though, the flyer that y'all sent out with like costume ideas for Cowboy prom. Who sent that out?
Joel.
Okay. I mean, the only disclaimer I'd give to people, and you might want to send this part of it out before the event. Like if you show up in the stockyards wearing some of those outfits, you might get your ass kicked.
Well, we have the whole. Oh no, they're in the. Okay, we have all of Billy Bob's to ourselves, but they've actually got to walk through
the stockyards,
the
Mule Alley, and all that. Which it's very touristy. But like some of the outfits, like particularly the ones on the far right of that page, we might want to like nix those ones, because there are some hardcore cowboys that are down there that would be like, "What the heck are these people doing down here? Where'd you come from, boy? I came from New Jersey." Like Dan Campbell, like Dan, don't wear that horse outfit. Don't do that, because you will get rode down there.
Somebody is going to wear that, by the way. That exact blow up horse.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, Cliff Wedgeworth from Texas might wear it as a joke.
Well, he could probably pull it off.
Yeah.
He could just. He's from Austin, right?
Yeah.
That's all he's got to say. I'm from Austin. Okay. And they'll be like, "Oh, we get it. The weird guy."
Yeah.
You know?
Well, let me just tell you, I was visiting Jackie and Mike, Benefits, Texas. Jackie Crane Power and Mike Power, and we went to a really bougie Western store.
In the stockyards?
No, it was in Dallas.
Oh yeah, Dallas. Yeah, sure.
It was actually in a mall, but they're moving
in a mall.
It was in a kind of like
That's
a mall.
not real, man.
If you had the name
In Dallas, I believe it.
Yeah. Now they have another location that's like standalone. You've heard of this place. I can't remember the name of it.
Okay.
It's a very high end.
I haven't heard of it then.
It's a very high end. They sell like really expensive stuff, but like also like the
like Luskey's.
No. Okay, I'm not going to know it. If you said the name,
Letty's?
I would know it. Nope. Brett, can you Google?
Natalie for sure will know it.
Can
If you said
Google-
high end,
can you Google
Natalie will know.
high end Western wear, Dallas, Texas?
Yeah, if Natalie for sure knows it.
So as he's Googling,
I'm gonna ask her, hey,
We're-
what's a high end, and see if she comes up with the same.
no.
Lucchese?
Lucchese, that's a brand.
Yeah,
this is a store. You could put retail store in that section. Is there something Hills Mall? Does that
North
No.
Park. North Park is like
maybe that's it? It's a store. Anyway, I'm going to tell the
Let's see what she
story
says.
as Brett's looking it up. Pinto Ranch. That's it. Pinto Ranch.
Oh, let's see if she knows what.
That's it.
If she comes up with that one.
Anyway, I bought a real outfit. So much so that they're actually.
It's real.
No. Let me tell you how I know this. So several of the people working in there were Mexican, but they were ranchers. They were like real Mexican. They worked like one of the guys was talking about going and working on the ranch later, right?
Okay.
And his girlfriend was in there, and so I go in and put on my outfit, and she was over with the store, and she was like, "That actually looks really nice." I'm just saying I bought a real outfit. That's what I'm saying.
A real cowboy outfit.
Now, a dressy cowboy outfit, not like I'm going to work on the ranch,
Yeah.
but like if I was going to like a dinner as a cowboy, like if I was John.
So you're gonna
Dutton,
look like John. You're gonna look like John Rich from Big and Rich.
I wish I had. I'm gonna show you a picture off air.
Okay.
And anyway, she loved it.
Okay.
It's dressy, like it's a dressy cowboy outfit, but really nice boots, a beautiful hat. I'm looking forward. I actually didn't want to take it off because I'm like, I feel like I'm really looking good right now.
I bet
That's
you
how I
will.
felt.
I bet you will. That'll be awesome.
All right, man. We're gonna go have dinner. You ready?
Yeah,
We're gonna
let's do
get.
it.
Oh, by the way, Controversy, the band with which you're in, Controversy.
Yeah, we didn't talk about drumming
True
or any of that.
members. We didn't talk about drumming.
Oh man.
I know.
What this is? I have to tell this story. This is going to fulfill a prophecy.
That's bold right now.
And maybe not a prophecy. A very big thing happened to me. I took drum lessons. I'll tell you two really fast stories.
Do it.
I took drum lessons as a kid. I got into band as a kid. I'm going to tell you the story. But anyway, I took lessons. I got kicked out of band in high school.
Okay.
I got kicked out of the band. And I'll tell this story. Christmas concert. White Christmas is the song we're playing.
Okay.
Is boring if you're in the percussion section.
Yes.
And I'm on the big bass drum.
Okay.
This just tells you a little about my personality. And it's just like on 2 and 4, bass drum, boom, boom. And I look over to the guy playing on the snare, and I said to him, "Man, we gotta let's tune this up, man. Come on, let's." And so we break into like a really. It was a cool beat.
Yeah. Of course it was.
And it threw the entire band off. Like all the instruments got so much so that the band director had to stop the song.
Right.
And after the show, my family was embarrassed. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. And after the show, he was like, "You're out of here.
Done.
You're out of here." And when I showed up on Monday, it was literally a pink slip to transfer out of band. He's like, "You're done. You're not doing this." But I continued taking drum lessons. I was very passionate about it. And I had an old drum teacher. He was a jazz drummer, professional jazz drummer. He was like 70 years old, but he was like a 21-year-old guy trapped in a 70-year-old body.
Oh.
He was so cool. Tom Fairs was his name. And I started taking drum lessons from him as a kid when I was like 8 years old. And I'll never forget this because some of the music we're going to play is what I played.
Oh.
He's trying to teach me to become a jazz drummer. And we're doing the 34 rudiments of drumming, paradiddles and flams and 5-stroke rolls and 7-stroke rolls. And he's trying to teach me how to read sheet music. And I just said to him one night, I was like, Mr. Ferris, we're at my house. I'm at my drum kit. I'm like, Mr. Ferris, this isn't what I do. I just come home from school and I put my headset on and I play my drums, and I'll play my drums for 2 hours. And I don't even know that 2 hours happened. And I just zone out. I'm not even thinking about playing the drums. And I just play the drums. And he goes, you can play the drums? Like, every day. Show me what you play. And so I took the Nevermind album from Nirvana.
Yep.
And I throw it in and I play some of the tracks, and I'm just ripping the drums up. I'm just tearing them up. Like Smells Like Teen Spirit, Breed. So I play these songs, and I stop, and he looks at me and he goes, what the hell is that? And I said, it's alternative. And he said, alternative to what? Death? and then he was so cool. He said, all right, hold on. Because he came up when Elvis, people thought Elvis was bad. And he told me that story. And so he said, let me show you what you were doing. And he charted out what I was actually playing. He's like, this is what you were playing. You just didn't read it. You just heard it and did it.
Right.
And my senior year in high school, he'd invited me to many gigs to play live with him. And then the musicians take a break at a point in the show, and he'd walk off the stage and he'd hand me a sticks, and he would say, you're up, you're playing the next set, the next part of the gig. And I'm like, no way, I'm not getting up on stage, I'm not playing. People, if I mess up, I don't want to make a fool of myself. He's like, you'll be fine, nobody will even know. And I never did it. I never did it. Never got on stage to play. I only played in my room at my house. And I'll never forget this. There was I took my drum lessons on Saturday in his studio. And at the end of one of my drum lessons, my senior year of high school, he said, at the end of my lesson, he said, goodbye. And I was like, well, are we good? Like, I'm going to see you next Saturday, right? And he goes, nope, don't come back. He said, I can't teach you anything until you've actually got live gig playing experience. So you can come back once you go play a live show. And once you do that, then you're welcome back here. But until then, don't come back. And I didn't do it. And he died.
Oh, wow.
He died.
Man.
He had an aortic aneurysm. I remember coming back my freshman year of college, and my mom told me, hey, Mr. Ferris died. And I was just like, I don't know. I just never played live. And I've had opportunities, and I've passed on them every single time.
So the Controversy show is your first live
It's
appearance.
going to be my first live performance. And it's going to be like because at one point we were going to do Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Yes.
And that is the song that I like ripped up. And that's the one where he was like, what the hell is this? And I was like, it's alternative. It's Dave Grohl. It's Kurt Cobain. He's like, and so like when we were going to do it initially, like that, when that song popped up in the playlist, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to play this song
Well, you know
live.
So
we still have a Nirvana song in there that I did play for him.
Okay.
Come As You Are. So that's.
But you know what? You may have to do some. You know how artists will sometimes like play like 15% of a song just to kind of tease the crowd.
Yeah.
You may have to do that with Smells Like Teen Spirit.
It's the opening intro is iconic.
That's what I'm saying.
The opening intro is iconic, and I know Miss Hot Dog loves that song.
She loves it. All right, man, we gotta get out of here. Let's
Yes.
cheers to that. Cheers to Controversy. Cheers to being a good friend.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think we have decades of friendship left. That's the coolest thing is work aside, we just get to be friends, which is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. It's an awesome intersection when friends come from business.
I love it, man. All right, true love.
True love.
Hands up, heads down.